chair,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then, yeah, there you go. Okay.
All right,
Are you good?
we're going to call the meeting to order. So first we'll do the roll call. Let me, I do not have share support. Why do I not have share support? Oh, you got to click on Larry Dunn.
Oh.
And then more, go to more. Promote the panelists.
Oh, because you're not there yet. Oh.
And a lot of talk.
I think you have to go over to panelists as opposed to an attendee list.
Oh.
Oh, okay. That's us, host.
Not my-
I need
We
to
better get Deb back in here.
be host.
Yeah, I'm
this
not
is,
seeing how you can become a host.
Like you said,
Panelist,
you
you're
did it.
an attendee. So we
Right,
put you
keep going.
on.
Or, no, forget the new.
Promote the
Promote the
panelist.
panel.
There it is.
That's it?
Yeah,
Well,
get
that's the
that.
start.
We do that?
Click it, click it. We'll go back to panelists.
It's not showing up.
And why aren't I there? Oh, maybe I have to.
He has to accept being a panelist.
Oh, I got.
I'm now rejoining.
Right, he wasn't paying attention.
Okay, I wasn't looking at this.
Yeah, I
one.
agree.
Okay.
All right, what I wanted to do
You're muted.
was, I'm okay, because we're working off of them, that mic,
Yeah, we don't want him to be talking because then we hear the echo.
right. Let's see, so I'm looking for,
I think we have it.
okay.
Very stuff.
I think we figured it out while you were.
Yeah, we figured it out, yeah, okay, thank you. All right, so. There we go, I wanted to get the agenda up since we're gonna be working through this. All right, so the first is a roll call. Let's start on my left.
Tom Olson, member.
Kristen DeStante, member.
Larry Dunn, chair,
Yourself as Patrick Secretary.
Ray Rafferty, vice chair.
and
Schmidt, member.
there we have it. The first item of business is approval of the April 4th minutes, which is in the handout.
I move we approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
All right, any discussion, changes, modifications?
Yes. I wanted to add that about the stewardship subcommittee meeting and report. So I forwarded you, because we
Yeah.
talked about it, but it never showed up in the minutes.
Yeah. We have, yes, we have that. And what we need to do then is to have Deb add that to the minutes.
Right.
So you
So
need
they
to
just-
forward that to Deb then.
Okay,
The mail, because she should be the one publishing the formal minutes.
okay. Well, we all have to agree that that's what we want, though, so it has to be.
Yeah, now you remember what that was, folks. That was the subcommittee meeting on the stewardship program with we actually present, I have.
Yeah, bring it up, because we
Yeah, I
may,
could-
we may or
okay,
may
I
not
could
want
bring
to
it
have the
up.
whole thing in
Okay.
there, right? That's why I sent it to you again.
Bring it up.
And for some reason, the agenda version that I have open doesn't have all the attachments to it. I just opened it up. on the
It
website.
doesn't, it has some, but not all.
Well, but this version doesn't have any, including the minutes, so that's not right. Yeah, but I got it out of the, got it from the website. Because I can't find an email with it.
Here it
I
is.
never seem to.
I get the whole thing.
Okay, so Town of Groton, this was the one, the notes from March 28th. So we
Yes.
did go through all this.
Right, so we talked about that at the meeting. So the question is, do we want to just add the whole thing into the minutes or not?
Because it's a subcommittee, I don't see a need for it. It would normally always see as a line that the subcommittee met.
Okay, then
Yeah.
then we need to add the line that the subcommittee met and give a report on their meeting.
Okay,
Because that's not in there at all, right? I mean,
Right.
I can't see the minutes yet, so for some
Yeah.
reason, I'm not able to find.
well, let me go back to new share and go back to that again. All right, open stewardship. Yes, it is not in there.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So the thing is to add in there under that section, which is section 4.5, is that we did have a meeting with GCA and was discussed.
Right.
So was agreement to.
I agree with Mindy. I'll amend my motion to accept the minutes as presented with the addition, the statement in section 4.5 after the adoption of the stewardship of the Lambtown Road, that a meeting of the stewardship subcommittee was held and they presented their report.
You want to second the motion?
Well, yes,
Yes,
he
second.
seconded the
Yes.
initial motion. Okay, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
but that would pass unanimously for those present. Yeah. No, I know, I meant Ann is present, Kristen is not. No, different.
I'm present.
Why am I, boy, I'm in a good.
There you are. Yeah,
I'm all over the place.
you
today.
do have a cold, a head cold. it
I have
sounds
a
like.
head cold. Yeah, I do have a head cold.
You have a head cold, clearly.
So, motion to approve. Unanimous. Add. Where we're at. All right, moving along at the speed of light here. We had. I get public communications.
We have public.
Well, quasi-public. I'm sorry, we have public out there. Do we, let's see, who else is,
Eugenia's here.
Eugenia,
No,
can she hear us?
I don't know. Let me see if I can. How do we get
You have
out of
to
your
pro-
screen?
He has to close it. This is top
yes,
sharing.
stop sharing.
No, I don't see her.
She's a participant,
She's good attendees right now.
attendee list.
She's an attendee.
And now,
Eugenia? Eugenia, you're there? You hear us?
I'm
Right.
here.
Oh,
we
good.
hear you.
This is the public communication section. Did you want to have some public?
Yes, I wanted to publicly communicate to you.
Okay,
And I think that Liz did too. I'm surprised that she's not on the call. But anyway, I'll go ahead. I just wanted to ask you all a few questions. I don't really have any kind of a presentation or anything like that. Based on some of the things that I saw you were just discussing at your April meeting. And I wanted to start with the 30 by 30 objective definition. I was super pleased with reading Tom Olson's statement of recommendation that 30% open space by 2030 be adopted. But I wanted to ask a question about how you would get to that goal in terms of getting to the 30% number. That the suggestion was that areas in the town be rezoned to green recreation or green conservation zone to reach the 30%. And I just wanted to know how that would provide permanent protection of those lands that would, it's really just a zoning designation. It doesn't prevent somebody from acquiring it, or I
Right,
just
so
like some clarification. on
Eugenia,
this.
the purpose of public communications is to hear your inputs and questions. We do have this on the agenda and we will talk about that point, but I don't want to get into a dialogue between the commission and a member of the public on the agenda items that are there. So I heard your question and we will address it when we get to that section of the
You could probably-
agenda.
Okay, and then I have one other question, which is, it's going to take a little while longer, but I was in touch with Jerry Loken, who is the town staff member who is assisting the athletic fields task force, to ask him what's going on with that. And apparently not much of anything has happened with that. They're waiting for a decision as to what's going to be happening with the Claude Chester School. But it will be coming up, this decision between whether to use organic turf or synthetic turf for these fields they're building. And I wanted to urge you all to consider making a recommendation to the town. We have already done that. We had this big PowerPoint presentation and everything on it.
We did as well.
Oh, okay.
Put a memo in, yeah.
We put a minimum
Yeah. It's about that time. Remember, that's been now 6 months
Yeah.
now, so. It's been a-
longer than that.
More than that.
Yeah. I think we sort of need to come back in and remind everybody about the issues there. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And you're going to get the number of those points other than the turf question, because that is not on the agenda today. But Noah is next up. So as we've discussed for a long time, been doing splendid work on doing the app. You want us to bring the app up?
This is the famous Noah.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Noah, could you rise and get into you're not in the video. Oh, I guess he is in the video.
Well, Feldman.
You all letting in?
Man. Still what?
So I've been doing diligent work in, let me do a share. Just let me bring it up.
Do I have to promote you or something? To be able to
No,
do it?
I'll do it. I'll do it.
Just gonna go back here.
Okay, so now look, the way I'll do this is I'll share. Let me do the share. And bring it up here. And go to the map. Okay. Or are you doing it?
No, we'll use that one.
Okay, that is making it easier for you to do.
He's bringing his notes up.
All right, so remember where we've been on this. So there's been a number of toing and froings and inputs, and nothing is ever going to be completed. But there's really several things on the question that we wanted to do today. One which is, let me get to my notes. I need my second screen. Yeah, I got at least one question to address with the commission about what's in or not in the calculation of open space. But we can get to that when we go through the overview. And then talk about the availability of the app to a wider audience than we currently have. So with that, current state, would you?
So I guess the biggest changes since we talked last time were the addition of the zoning features. Everything now has, every parcel has a zone attached. You can go into the layers list and look at the various zones. I think that was the biggest request I've gotten. I know I've gotten some data upgrades from you, updates. I haven't even touched those yet.
So zoning under the table, where would I, because,
It's on the
Top
layer.
right corner.
oh,
You gotta take the name though.
yeah, let me get rid of that.
Leave stuff off of it.
Yeah. Okay, so up. Oh, great. I hate doing this with a mouse. All right, so we got zoning under
Exactly.
Groton, Noank, Groton Long Point, and Groton City zoning.
You can turn those on and off as needed.
So they're all on at this point. I'm reading this right.
Well, there's still
Yeah,
the top, your
yeah,
top
the top
level
zoning
zoning,
is,
you have to turn that eye
Sorry. There we
on.
go.
Change the zoning.
I know that's of interest to you guys right now, so all that is added.
All right, so if I just do, like, get rid of Noank and Groton and just do. Okay, so that leaves the town. The zoning is restricted in those areas from us anyway. Okay. All right, and the other. Any other noise?
That's probably the biggest change feature wise. I guess if you count the base maps as part of the app, those have been getting a lot of upgrades. Doing a ton of work on trails over the winter. So you'll start seeing a lot more stuff appearing there. We did a rebuild of the Trails app as well, a refresh at least. It brought a lot of new data in. That's kind of conservation adjacent information.
All right, but the trails aren't on this map. This is just,
No.
right, okay, all right.
You'll see some of the, if you blow, that's what he says, you have to change your base layer. Right now, I think you're on the default, but if you go in they have, you got all these other base layers.
Oh, those are now no longer gray.
Some of them, some of them are, some of them aren't.
Yeah, I didn't expect that to work at all. Last I knew that was still broken.
Oh, I'm looking at it, last I looked, they were all grayed out. That's interesting, okay. So shall we give you a demo of your app?
Maybe.
So where would I, just for jollies, where
I
would
don't
I?
remember, I know that this was working the other day when I checked it.
Take
last
if you
week.
take the zoning off. And
Yeah,
just
turn the
look at
zoning
that.
off, just turn that down.
Okay.
Now you're back to.
All right, so let's go back. So which layer?
Now, if you just go into the main map and you zoom into we added the full sheep farm trail.
Oh, okay, so I do see a trail here.
And they're kind of obscured because you've got the actual your open space turned on, so you get a better view.
Oh, I see what you meant. Hold on, so if I take layers and get open space data off,
Yeah, exactly.
then the
Now you
trail,
see the trails are on there.
Where are we?
this is
Townsend. Okay, yeah. Things like I was actually just out at Uconn trying to get some of those.
BB Pond goes around here and then it links up to the other trails that way.
There's some that we've had in here forever that have probably just been sitting here for 20 years. And when I actually went out to check them, I realized they're not very good. But like Haley Farm has been totally redone. Bluff Point's been totally redone. We added a farm. I have Leo Antonino almost ready to go. He's been frantically getting out there before the leaves pop. That'll be the end of that. Yes.
All right,
You have just a handheld GPS?
Yeah.
It's not one of the.
It's a Trimble. It's a good GPS. We, generally with the leaves off, you can get sub-meter accuracy, or maybe like 2-meter accuracy.
one of the questions I had was, when we go into the stats, all right, and we're talking about currently filtered open space acres, right? And so when you go back in and looking at, well, all right, let me try this, because this is one of the things they did. So if I go in and just say, let's just look at the town, get rid of the cities, open point. And I used this when I was talking to the RTM. That says from a town point of view, based on this, is that the town really only has contributed 8%, right? In terms of open space. But that the public sector being, Avalonia, Gosa, et cetera, they contribute another 12. So, the town might have close to 20. I don't give credit for the town council, if you will, for the RTM for doing the work.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was the whole thing about the budget, which we'll get to in a little bit. But if I go through here, then I noticed afterwards, I get rid of the privately, get rid of the state. Then you have town-owned, dedicated. If I just focus on that for a second, right? And then go to the tables. It's crunching its numbers. When you get to the deed section, a number of these in that calculation still are not formally protected. So so my question is, if they're not formally protected, how can we claim them as dedicated open?
A use.
I understand that, but that's why we've got the other request that we've made to then provide the technical or legal protection versus just by
To prove it.
to approve it, right? So why didn't that pop up? Oh, I hate when that happens.
Evidently are sharing.
Nope, I just said Safari can't open the page. All right.
But just to go back to answering Ray's
Internet
question,
connection's unstable.
as the parcel team was developing everything, we looked at different, we also looked at what the POCD had. Okay, the POCD classifies open space into three basic categories: dedicated, facility, and managed. Okay, they have three different bulk categories. Okay, so all the town, and then you have what's ever left over, which is there's like town hall for the acre that it sets on, because it's not considered open space because there's not enough there. A lot of these sewer, public works pump houses on at 0.08 acres. Okay, we take all that out. So really, there's four categories for all the town land. Okay. So if there's no open viable open space on it, it's put in one category. If it has a facility on it, like the schools, okay, and it has open space because it's 12 acres for a school or whatever, and playground area, ball fields, all that kind of stuff that goes in the facility things. We classified it to facilities. If it's got if it's a park like COP and those type of things, then it's considered managed. Okay, and we worked with the Parks and Rec to verify that yes, these are the parks that I'm maintaining. So he told us which ones were going to be on that list. We went to Mark Berry. He said these are the town-owned properties. I'm actually sending people out to manage those. Okay, so I go there's an outside guy that's classified that. So what's ever left over, we then looked at it and said those are the dedicated by use. How we got to the dedicated open space. So everything else was already taken. Okay. So that's how, and so then we said, that's how they're categorized in the data that I provided to Noah. Okay, he categorized that's the dedicated open space. Then what we did is with that, we also took a look at each of working with Bruce.
Hold on. Okay, sorry.
That's why Larry.
It went down.
But working with Bruce has come out, is there some type of, whether it's in the deed, whether it's or was there in the registry that we could find, because I had access working with Bruce to a lot of the online stuff that for the plot plans that's dedicated, that says this is open space to be given to the town. We found something that said this is supposed to be some type of open space, and we documented all that's in that database that they're showing here is what kind of protection that we see. And that's something you'll see. It says it's in the deed or a plot or a record, town record of some sort, page number, whatever, book and page number for each one of the dedicated. So then we came up with it's either silent or something that still needs to be worked on. And that's when we started that process with the larger ones. We voted on that 2 months ago. We voted on that, sending that in to the town manager to please start the process to protect these larger ones. Now, we recognize that there's a lot of smaller, less than 1 acre type of stuff that's left over because it's too small to actually build on or meet that it's not practical to turn over. It's still in the dedicated open space, but it's vacant and probably never going to be used. So how much effort do we want to put into turning that into, and that's where that we can still churn in the future on this, in regard to, putting the type of better protection on those items.
Yeah, but back to the question you started, which is, as we record what we have, should we or should we not, if there's not formal legal deed protection, claim it as open space and force the issue? Because that's what we're trying to do. We submitted a letter,
So you're saying you want to put a fifth category out there?
No, I want to then say it's not. In other words, it's town-owned property, but it's not dedicated open space.
Need to be dedicated.
They need to be dedicated. And there's town-owned land, but until it's dedicated, why should we give credit to it? Because then when we get into these discussions with town council, well, we have all this land. Well, if you don't, it's not protected. It's just land we happen to have. I'm just throwing that, I'm
Okay.
throwing that out there because I noticed it in the,
That's the way it was,
Sort of.
how we developed it. We
Oh, yeah.
were,
Yeah,
because we were trying to work from a more positive attitude relative to how close are we to the 21% goal that we were using at that time.
and I'm asking the question. Now that we got all that, do we want to say that it's really legal, when we say dedicated, it has legal protection or not?
But see, I don't see the legal protection definition in the POCD. And that, what definition are you using? I think the only one that we can say that we can go bounce back to is the POCD, because that's town council and RTM approved. And that doesn't say anything about deeds.
Yeah, but aren't, just in
protection.
general, don't lands with deeds have some kind of status? So just because a land, it doesn't say, couldn't that be put in a deed?
But let's take a look at the POCD.
Yeah, I understand the POCD, but that's not what we're talking about, because
But that's the
POCD
definition.
The
The definition.
POCD never, in the last lots of years, when they produced the documents, they've never come out and really officially determined what open space is.
Right, that's a quandary we've been dealing with.
Right, exactly. And we've been resolving it by going back to the deeds of putting.
But I've been resolving it from my viewpoint as leading the parcel team to saying, hey, what's the best, level of protection that I can give to something, okay? It's probably giving it to GOSA or somebody like that, that's their whole life purpose in life, and they're gonna
Right.
keep it in perpetuity. But then we can keep backing ourselves down a list of less and less. Anything can get changed, okay? And so,
but
In a town, you're
there's a difference between the town saying 4 people get up and vote to make the change versus I got to go to court to get that change approved, because you're really reversing a legal decision. So it is a little bit more protection, or that's
Yeah.
why we do it. So that,
here's the definition, I'll read it to you. Dedicated open space include all land that is permanently preserved as open space. This includes land owned by the state, municipal organization, and land trust. It can also include land that is privately owned but set aside for open space as part of a development.
permanent is the word I got out of that
Yep.
reading. If the deed doesn't protect it, it ain't permanent. That's all I'm saying.
I won't argue that.
Are we in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay, so if we're in agreement with that, then when we do the calculation today, doesn't say we have the opportunity, right, with and without. Because I think when we added up all the non-deed ones, it was something like, wasn't super. It was.
You could filter if you download the thing, filter it and take the deed stuff out. Yes, you can, it's all calculable.
But what percentage would you say is not deeded? Because I'm assuming a lot of that non-deeded is the small ones, perhaps an
We did
acre.
do that calculation.
I don't have that off the top of my mind.
So
I've
it's,
been kind of working the other way. I've been more on the
it's
positive side.
these, if you do this sort,
Looking at it from the standpoint of saying, I also look at it from when a town owned as being, when we look at used to look at the 21%.
Yeah.
It's 21% of the town owned because of the state initiated 21% of the state. They're not talking about the land trusts. and not talk about the water companies.
Absolute. amount
No,
of-
they were talking, it was, the
Okay,
21 is
everything.
split, 11 for the towns and private, and
Oh, that's right.
10% for the state.
Right.
Now, the flip side of that is when, if you're just using, that I think is under the generic open space categorization also. So if we were to say all three of our open space categories count, okay, then I'd argue that we're at 32% for the town. Okay, if I go pull the number, because I did do that calculation, if I take between, all open space categorizations for state, municipal, and private, you add all that up, it comes up to 32% in the town of Groton right now. So we could, in theory, stop and walk away and just go work on cleaning up our categorizations and call it a day.
But we won't.
A lot of that,
And we
what
didn't.
categorizes open space.
Because
is
we don't
really
all,
open
we don't all agree that that stuff falls into the category that we follow.
But that's only, would you, everyone, I think generally categorizes the dedicated and managed would be the only two categories that
And
would
that's
count towards
what-
that.
That's what
That
I've
gets
been,
you at,
that's what I've been
20.
counting.
that gets you over 20, just at.
Yeah, no, just about, yeah, that gets just about 20%. But that includes some level properties, and I,
That haven't
That
been
haven't-
dedicated in the deeds.
right,
I
that
grant
aren't
you
really
that.
dedicated to. That's the question I got on the table. And I'm trying to remember, and I should have looked this up. I'm trying to remember now, because you did do that calculation,
Yeah,
how many acres that was. I think it was, maybe it wasn't that much. I think it was maybe under 100 acres.
oh, yeah, it's not, there's more parcels involved than
There's a lot of parcels.
the acreage.
All right, so it may be a moot point, why am I spending all this?
Yeah,
time?
why are you spending half an
All
hour?
right, well, I just wanted,
No, it's a fair question. I'll do some more detail. I'm glad we brought it up. It's a good thing as far as how, but that's right. I have put that stuff with a clear decision to put it over in the dedicated because we're trying to push ourselves to get it to
Right.
that, recognizing that we do, but acknowledging that we do know which parcels those are that aren't fully deed covered because we have, a lot of it was because COVID was going on. I couldn't get into the town hall. I still haven't gotten into the town hall to spend the time digging through the records to see if
there's buried in there somewhere, yeah.
there's
Yeah,
various.
some of them, like, I think, some of them are on the block by the town that are in that category, by the way.
We're on the block. I don't think they're on the block at any given. The only one that is questionable right now is the 17 acres on Zero Flanders Road.
Correct. and
Because that's the one that I have considered that as open space because it's sure being used as open space
but
by
it's
the
not-
locals,
But it's not really.
but the town has offered it up because there's no protection on it, or that the town is not cognizant when between the planning and zoning actions and the economic development actions that they're willing to go take it. That's just like what happened with the school, with the middle school. It just, the town does things and doesn't worry about the legal ramifications until they have to go, somebody says, wait a second. Okay, that's the flip side of the whole story. The town has demonstrated a lack of appreciation and consistency and follow through and paying attention to those dedicated open space requirements.
I'll withdraw the question and readdress it when we get to the,
I was gonna say, well, we're talking about number, yeah, 49 now.
yeah. No, but it does relate here because the data then goes
Right.
in here, which
Right.
then represents the percentages.
And I acknowledge that that's a true
Okay.
statement. It's a good point. And I don't know, are you suggesting that we have some kind of disclaimer in that the dedicated space is was presented here? That when you click on dedicated open space on the selection that Noah's developed there, that we should make that like two subcategories, which would be very easy to do, dedicated fully protected or
Well, I'm
dedicated
okay.
unprotected.
We added this about tab to explain things,
Yeah.
right? So I'm okay here, right, where we talked about dedicated open space, to add another sentence, I'm trying to think of the easiest thing to do, that says, hey, we are currently evaluating this amount of space, which relates to the subcommittee's work on the parcels that don't have protection at this point. And kind of, which amounts to X%, just so people can add or subtract it. That might be simplest way to address it and at least keep the,
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
You can do that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
is that satisfactory to, okay, so I see head nods on that. All right, so
Yeah.
let's do that. You would provide. the
I'll work with
number.
Noah to come up with the words
Okay,
and the, you know, and
all right,
I understand what we need to do there. I have the action.
okay. Oh, aren't you glad you came?
I got an action item. We can deal with it. We're good friends.
All right, say the about tab definition. Okay. Any other question? Somebody else have a question for Noah?
On Uconn Woods, we're going to be proposing to include another trail, an existing one. Actually, it's one of the older ones, but never got on the more current maps.
Okay. Where is it?
It runs in the southern portion is a wooden bridge. When you come across the wooden bridge to the west side of the bridge, you have a choice of going left or right. If you go left, it drops you into the big loop that takes your way around up to the top. If you go to the right, you can then follow along the stream and go to the inner loop trail. It comes from where the clearing is up on, and the trail drops down and then comes back up the hill and meets with Yellow Trail and so forth. So that was before we ever had the wooden bridge and the access to down to Route 1. That trail got us down that far. And then we didn't have any land that belonged to Pequot Woods. Everything else was in private hands at the time. So
That should be fairly straightforward. Unfortunately, it's probably this week or November. As soon as the leaves come out, I mean, I can do it under a leaf canopy. If you really want to do it without the leaves, yes, but I might be able to get out there.
Any other questions? Ann? I want to forget you out there in Zoom land.
Yep. No, I'm okay.
All right. All right,
Do I have to ask the question, is this thing ready for prime time? Or
that's the second question. The first one was, we got an update and changes. The second question is it now to a state that says it provides information to the community? And my suggestion is that since it's labeled Conservation Commission viewer, that we provide it under the conservation webpage per se, provide access
Put a link there.
to folks with a link with the caveat that says this is yet to be approved by the town planning, what would be the right thing, planning and zoning?
I don't know who has to approve this. Who controls all?
You'd have to talk to planning. I mean, I'm not even in the building. Never mind.
it'd be the planning department. Not a-
Or even the town manager, I mean, either one.
It might be a good idea to have it go live so that we can get some feedback
No, we've done that.
more.
And there's some nervous about, we don't want to let anybody because it might change. Well, you know,
Of course it's gonna change.
yes, it's
Dynamic.
it's dynamic, so what I wanted is the commission's view on,
We work for the town manager, not for the planning department, but I'd be going to Mr. Burke.
with. the
Let him know and see
recommendation I
if he
just
has
said.
any concerns, if he wants it to go someplace else. I'd recommend that you have a discussion with Mr. Bird, saying that we've talked to Noah, the thing is up to a level that we're happy with, that we think is ready for prime time. We recognize that we're just a commission out here that work for you, and that, we recommend to you that this be made available with to the full general public.
So to get access to it, you have to go to the town's website
And then the
and
conservation.
then the conservation. And then from there,
Right. So it would be
Follow it
another,
down.
because we have all these sections there, it would be another one on probably the resource page. Right, 'cause that's where. Yeah, resource.
Well, I recognize that it's going out to the general public and that he should know about it because.
I agree.
Right, would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
Someone,
Someone.
I so moved, I moved that.
Oh, so
And the
moved.
motion
Oh,
exactly
sorry.
is,
What is the motion she wants to know?
Whatever you said, I'm just.
That
Oh, we're
okay,
gonna
so
talk to
chair
Bert.
talk to
the chair talk to the town
town
manager
manager.
and recommend that access to the conservation viewer be open to the full general public as part of the town website,
Or the Conservation Commission website.
at the conservation website.
What do we call this? Access to what?
The Conservation Commission viewer.
It's right down in the lower corner.
Any further discussion on that motion?
is it much for you to move it into our
We need a second
website?
first.
I'll second it.
And to answer your question, is it the IT department, not, no, anyway, so I just make a request and, because I'm the filter to it, with the IT stuff, so. And some of them, like last time, I made a request, it was done within an hour. I mean, this is not hard stuff, because it's there. It's just a link, right? So it's pretty easy stuff. Any other comments, questions? All right, let's have a vote.
Larry,
All-
I have one.
Dan?
I have no problem with, I think you should talk to the town manager just to clear everything. I think on the economic value, I just looked at the definitions or on the about page. You should probably have the same disclaimer in there that's in the, where is it? Oh. Yeah. Because people might look at that and go, oh my goodness, it's only $1,000 per acre. You might just to have the same kind of disclaimer that's in the stewardship. Document.
It's a paragraph.
I'll do that. I got that action.
So yeah, but again, just, yeah, but just that little
It'll be.
disclaimer, right? Yeah, so it's already written actually.
It's already written. It's just a matter, I need to get it to know,
Just to put it in.
and I've got the master key of that.
Okay, all right.
I'm just trying to think if there's some, information that that we know that someone that hasn't been involved in any of these discussions are going to look at and go,
The answer is yes.
yeah. And we'll probably hear about it.
But that's the point. Then if you hear
Yeah.
about it, then we can.
We
make
can
adjustments
update it. Yep.
and do updates. So otherwise, it never gets out there. All right, so with that amendment,
Let me, well, it's not really an amendment, is it?
well, it's amendment to the motion.
Is it?
No.
That was the point of, she didn't get her comment. When you asked, is there any comments before you passed over her? This was on just on all the other stuff.
This is just a comment about what's going on there.
No, the motion was that the chair goes to the town manager and recommends that,
Can I read it the way I wrote it to make sure I
Yes,
have it the way you
fine.
wanted to hear it?
okay. That's the
So,
secretary.
The motion for the chair to talk to the town manager recommending public access to the Conservation Commission viewer as a link on the Conservation Commission webpage.
Okay. Yes. So I guess this is a detail that didn't have to be in the motion.
Correct. That's what we're trying to say.
Okay, all right, I'm cool with that. Okay. All right, thank you, Ann.
You're
Any
welcome.
other comments? All in favor? Okay.
I also read.
All these things I get to do the work though.
Well, you're the chair.
I'm doing work.
Yeah, no.
Tom did a lot of work.
I'm the work, no one's doing all the work.
No,
All right, so no, I want to formally, from the commission point of view, formally thank you for all the work you've done. I mean, you've seen we do use it. And it does have value and,
Gonna go live.
and it's gonna hopefully go live, but I actually did use the data when I talked to the RTM the other, and I'll get to that later in the discussion. So it does aid us in trying to fulfill our mission. So we appreciate your support.
It'll get a lot more use once it's actually live. People will definitely be
Okay,
looking at
all
it.
right, so let me stop share there. And that what, you can still be here,
I just
open meeting. Oh, you mean not as a,
hide. I'm gonna hide her.
okay.
Hi, thank you. Love you.
All right, next item 4.2 was Greenway approval.
Mm,
So, no, we don't have, we are more than invited to stay. Your reward is not, you can leave. How's that?
Be in touch.
So the
Thank
next
you.
item is Greenway approval, as you may have seen in the newspaper, that the state has formally approved the applications. So I want to thank Tom for his diligence and work, because he's basically the 90% of my estimate,
I'm gonna work.
90% of the work
Still doing it.
to get that through. Now, the good part about that is that it does provide access to funding to do the real stuff. I mean, so in and of itself, it's an interesting statement, but it doesn't
Right.
generate anything by itself. So as we move forward with some of our other projects, we need to be cognizant of what can we do. I know you, before the meeting, you had said, about
We'll
pollinator.
talk about that when we get to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's good news.
Is this something that the money cycles through Parks and Rec, I guess, right?
Well,
No? I mean, what
Get the
entity?
money, don't you?
I can explain.
first off, just give me 2 seconds here to give you a little background on the approval process and who's involved. The Connecticut Greenway Council, which is a group of about 12 people that are appointed by the governor, is the people that actually do the approval process. They're supported by both Department of Transportation and the Department of Energy and Environmental Resources, the D people. And so they reviewed, there were 4 applications that came in this year, 2 from Groton, 1 from Rocky Hill area, and 1 from Norfolk area. Right? All of them were approved this year, so we had good success because they were all very good. We probably had the best packages according to what I listened in on the meeting, which is back on April 12th. They were very appreciative to the thing and asked me to actually provide some comments. And with that, the council recognizes that they're also the people that did the analysis and review for the recreational trails awards back this past year. The council's they awarded like the Tri-Town Trail $112,000 they got. Now that was before they had the Greenway. Their Greenway application was in process at the time, so they were aware of it. It was in the. It was says they were applying for it. So it did help them because there was there was like 200 applicants and they only approved 12. Okay, but having
Wow.
Greenway in your application helps. Okay, to get those type of awards. So that's how the Greenway Council does. They do actually get a vote in their award packages and stuff, but it's in recreational trails grants that are given out by the state.
Given up by the state through this group.
Well, through the Greenway Council, the actual awarding and all that's all done through DEP. Okay, because the people that are evaluators to say who gets the money
Right.
was the Greenway Council. Okay. So, but then the actual administration is all done through DEP.
So DEP will announce, say, once a year that.
Well, it depends on when the bond commission provides funding, and
Oh, right.
then there'll be an award announcement, typically again done through DEP. Like they did the last round, and they also do just like they do the OSMA grants, that's all done similar, but there's these recreational trails grants, and they also, they have other ones that come up as the bonding becomes available. Excellent.
So the question is, when's the next tranche of funding? I know that like,
I don't know that off the top of my head.
The bonding commission, excuse me for jumping in, when they set aside the money for this, is a project already before the bonding commission and then they're funding it, or is the bonding commission going to give a blanket?
The last batch, I can tell you a
$100,000?
little bit, this last, I was involved because of in my wearing this full disclosure Tri-Town Trail hat, I was the one that wrote up that. And the bonding commission provided DEP a block of dollars and said, okay, we can go off, and we're gonna allow this to the recreational trails. And so then they made an announcement, and so they had a round of recreational trails, okay? And the bonding commission has in the past had kind of a drumbeat that says, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. But recently it has changed a lot because of all the COVID and the ARPA funding and this type of stuff. So there's a lot of churn going on right now. Things have gotten out of kilter. And then you apply on top of that all the retirements that have happened in DEP for the people that execute this stuff it's just been a lot of confusion at DEP. I mean, I just give you a whole opinion here, but that has not helped as far as to come up to tell me, ask the question, when's the next round is. I don't think that they even know themselves.
right, I mean, that's the point. The point is, you need to be prepared, so when
Need to
that
be
happens,
prepared.
you can jump in.
Right.
And this gives us extra brownie points in terms of.
Right, it does.
the
You actually get
allocation
a very, if you're applying to a greenway, you get like, it's a grading scale, you get an extra 15 points just for being a greenway.
So we just need to now be aware of when that money is going to be available, so then we can submit an application for money. And your question was, who does that? And my understanding is through Parks and Rec.
The Parks and Rec has done the last ones.
Yeah.
Just like they did the round to get the for the extension of the GNS trolley line and stuff.
Right.
That was the last one that the town applied for.
Right.
The Tri-Town applied for this. They didn't apply for the recreational, but the Tri-Town Trail did. So it's the area people are aware of them. It's their formal announcements made by the state. So Parks and Rec does watch that.
I was going to say, should be fair for us to ask Parks and Rec to let us know when the state announces something. Right. We can do it. We can go to GCA, go to a bunch of other places to gain community support for whatever monies we
Well,
want.
as a conservation commission, we would be looked at to provide an endorsement letter because they do need like typically three endorsement letters for any of these grants.
Thank you, Tom.
All right. So that was 4.2. 4.3 was the plastic ordinance section and a bunch of stuff here. So let me start off with some positives. You probably saw again in the paper this morning or yesterday. This morning, that the town of Groton to date has received $33,000. And I assume that's a quarterly payment, which means you're talking about 120 days or so.
I said monthly.
No, I think
I thought that was year to date.
I thought it was year to date.
year to date, but I thought they said the announcement was twice a year, not quarterly.
You
Well,
wouldn't
it's
have
not a half a
twice a
year.
year,
We're
huh?
gonna head-
Right.
Tom's
So
gonna
anyway.
find it for us right now.
Whatever it is, it's still money
Yes.
that is supposed to be, by my read of the state statute, is supposed to be for either the cleanup of nips bottle themselves or something else, dealing with conservation, right? So part of the thing I think we need to do or think about, oh God, another motion, that we leverage this and provide input to the town council that says, hey, in a nice way saying, this isn't general fund stuff. This is for a very specific purpose. We want to make sure, and this is how the Conservation Commission recommends this conservation money is used in the town. So that's kind of my suggestion with some specific direction on how to spend it. The obvious one is litter cleanup of the nips, the nips themselves. But beyond that, is there any thoughts or recommendations that we should include in?
Well, I mean, what about thinking about, so many ideas we can throw out there, but like working on a pay-as-you-throw trash program? To further advance the cause of reducing, the trash and litter. Maybe have the town sponsor some more types of recycling centers, whereas here, you can only really recycle number 1 and number 2. And there's 3, 4, 5 of the poly, whatever styrenes, but maybe a collection area where then those funds would pay to take those unusual recyclables to places where they actually could be recycled. I think we could come up with a million ideas.
Yeah, but I think we need to constrain it to something that's reasonably doable. Because right now is, if we got the stuff that's too easy for, nobody will take it. I mean, there's problems. Those are bigger problems. If there was a place for this stuff to go, I'd be more inclined. But right now is put something straightforward that we can do. I mean, certainly litter and trash pickup of the offending article is a no-brainer.
Well, for
Then what
instance,
else?
just to add to that, the Conservation Commission in the past signed up for or was appointed to a particular road that we were to, adopt a highway. And they've taken it away from us.
They have?
The sign's not up anymore.
More.
Well, that could mean anything.
We're starting more.
Actually, the really good news, we were doing the entrance road to Bluff Point, Depot Road, and then just before you go into Bluff Point on the left-hand side was Industrial Highway, sort of the Amtrak facilities access road. And years ago, the road down to Depot was a mess. The neighborhood was a mess. And then the side road was a deposit of all sorts of things.
So are you proposing that one of the actions would be that, because there is the organize a generic plastic trash pickup, by area, by, their program or.
Right, I can, because maybe some money into that program where they can buy trash bags and
Or provide trash bags.
right, for volunteers, let's say, in this case, it was commissions at a particular road.
A lot of groups that do that. GOSA does it. Like, I think there's scouts that do it. I don't know, does Amalonia do it? But different groups already. I think the aquarium does it, or different groups already sponsor. So maybe the town gives money and support, some grabbers and gloves and bag, like you said, just supporting rather than us adopting another whole thing that we're supposed to run and be in charge of, just supporting the groups
Well,
already.
plus they have to assign a truck and a driver or something to go pick up the stuff.
What the Last Green Valley, which is the organization for Norwich and North, that does a lot of coordination for things. They actually provide cleanup grants to smaller organizations. So GOSA on an annual basis, I'm aware of because I've helped them out, and they said, "Oh, we get $500 from Last Green Valley. It's a grant annually to provide exactly what you're saying for trash pickup and cleanup efforts. And they can use it whatever they want. They just have to report back to them how much they cleaned up and that type of stuff. There's a form that they fill out. It's given to each of the cleanup persons of the day. So they just do around their properties, and then plus Haley Farm, because they were instrumental in any of that. So over the month of April, what they do is each go out multiple times. So if it's to provide, maybe we should be, rather than relying on Last Green Valley, which really is kind of outside their normal spectrum, that you're basically suggesting that we, as the commission, would be recommending to the town council that they consider giving grants out for local cleanup efforts.
Especially some of these groups give
I
so
like
much.
that one.
back to
It
the
kind of
town.
matches what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But then it does it does involve the community and it leverages the money. I mean, because 32,000 doesn't go a long way when you start talking about townwide. So that's a way of leveraging that. And you're right, if it's $500 per group or whatever it is,
For events.
or per event or whatever the thing is, then I think it goes a long way. All right, that's and that would also kind of subsume the picking up of the NIPS also.
Yeah, well, that was one of the categories, how many nips you picked up. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't preclude you can't have a little data sheet with you, that as you're picking up stuff, you can just.
That's what they actually, Last Green Valley provides a data sheet that's given to each of the cleanup persons, because I would get my cleanup ones, and I kind of, estimate the numbers. and stuff.
Right.
It has some weird stuff in there on the sheet, but
Well, that's stuff
Another
that's out
option
there.
might be to take some of this money, and if it's gonna be a steady revenue stream, it looks like, going forward
Yep.
forever. And just let's lop off 10 grand a quarter, 40 a year, and buy space with it, buy more land, you
So
know?
putting it into the fund.
Yeah, but not letting them, they can't then reappropriate it for something else. It has to go into a dedicated open space purchase fund.
Yeah, no,
well, that's it may a little bit slighter way it says that it sounds like the finance have already has it set aside for an income from this stream coming into the town. Okay, would be a recommendation is that a fund be established as part of the open space acquisition, that the money be directed to the open space acquisition fund, but with the caveat that that there would be grants provided for cleanup.
It has to stay, I mean, the whole point of that money is it's conservation money. It's not general budget money.
well,
Yeah, it's not general budget, right?
Right.
That's what you're saying, is that it be directed, just like the land use, when they get put it into the acquisition fund, that it be directed to the open space acquisition fund, and then, that we also open that open space acquisition fund up to clean up grants.
okay. I kind of like that, and I think you got to limit it to that, otherwise you get too carried away. And it's simple to understand.
Yeah.
Do I have someone volunteer to write that letter for the petition?
This has to be done by May 10th, right? Because if somebody has to present it on the 10th. That's what, well, that's, so now, let me read the article from the newspaper here. Sheila Morrison, the finance director for the town of Groton, said the town received $33,687 for sale of 673,578 nip bottles in the local liquor stores. But that the town what the town plans to do with the funds is still to be determined. The town council's committee of the whole is scheduled to discuss how to best allocate the funds on May 10th.
Yeah, so we need to get input in by May 10th. That's my question.
So is someone needing to be at that meeting to make a presentation?
It's always
or-
better.
Yes, well, both. A is we need to get a memo into them beforehand, so that it's not a surprise. And
So it's
two,
part of the package.
yeah, and two.
And then you go read it again, so it gets on the public display.
And unfortunately have supposedly somebody, an out-of-town guest arriving on the 9th.
I'm available
So it's
on
not
May 10th to make the presentation.
Well, I don't think, that's not my first question is, someone to write the memo. They don't have to be there on time. Have the memo written.
Looking at me.
Well, you're Ms. Plastic.
Okay, all right. So I'll write a letter, but I will have to collaborate on what's in the letter.
Okay, well, I can read you what I captured so far as
And
the
who am I
idea.
addressing the letter
The
Town
town
council.
manager and the town mayor.
to?
I would do
Council,
the vote.
manager, and.
Here's a sample.
So this is the money from the NIPS collection, is that, or the NIPS?
I'll work on it. We don't have to take everybody's time.
I'll be
I'll-
happy
yeah,
to.
I can put the letter.
And you heard the discussion too, so you know what we're talking about.
So
Okay.
as long as we all agree that the parameters are that it's going into an open space fund, right?
Right,
It's an open space acquisition fund.
Acquisition.
Right.
Not maintains, not stewardship, anything like that. just
No,
acquisition.
the town already has this fund set up.
Yeah, right, it's up.
It's an established fund.
Okay, with the caveat that it can be used, the grants can be given to local environmental organizations specifically for the purpose of litter cleanup.
Right.
I think we're gonna limit how much, like half of it or,
$500 per event.
well, no, how much of each, like, if 30,000 goes in there, how much, what percentage of it can be used and how much should be kept in the fund?
Well, no, in theory,
We can use all of it for grants?
for all the money that's provided from the NIPS fund could be used for cleanup.
Okay, so it could be up to
But the
100%.
residual is gonna remain
Right,
in the
okay.
fund, in the acquisition fund.
Okay.
Up to the amount that's been deposited. from
You don't
the
want to have a
acquisition.
specific monetary amount in there.
What I would limit the individual grants to $500 per event,
Up to the amount of
up to $500 per event.
dollars per cleanup event.
How do you define event?
Well, they apply for it. They.
I think you say use the Glass Green Valley. as
I
a
use the
template.
Last Green Valley as they actually have, you can get, I think you can get it online. I'll see if I can get it online here, because I know GOSA applies for that. They get a
Did you
grant.
send her?
Yeah.
Because I think, saying is that this is successfully been.
Well, what we're asking is that we don't want the money to disappear into the general fund,
Right.
but we are strongly suggesting using the open space
And encourage.
to park it there.
Yes.
And
Not to,
And
want
then
some
have
people
it, have it then out of there be available for cleanup efforts by the community. Because we're not suggesting that this gets lost into, let's say, Public Works, who does some
Exactly
cleanup
right.
on this,
Yeah.
right, on the side of the road. They may be saying, oh, look at all this.
I'm sure everybody's gonna be after this $33,000.
Yes.
but it's earmarked.
But we're gonna put
We
our
pushed.
our way forward.
We worked for that. We gotta get GC on this too, because we worked for that NIPS bill in Connecticut at the state level. Fought for that, worked on it.
Giving mine the phone board help. But the reason the money's even there is because conservation commission,
Yeah.
GC, I would say,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
That's gonna be added there.
It was interesting, I thought, one article was that 5 towns are not receiving any money,
The liquor stores.
liquor stores.
Oh, that's bad for them. No liquor stores or no?
No, that's what I said, it said no liquor stores.
So therefore, somebody is keeping track per town of all this. How many nip bottles sold? Actually, the wholesaler has to submit that.
You know, barcode, right?
Yeah.
So when do we need this letter? Just I'll try to do it tomorrow.
It has to be probably in by
By
Monday the
before
9th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
definitely.
week. That'd be
I'll try to
good.
get done tomorrow.
Yeah, within the week, you have a week here. It's Tuesday's
Right.
presentation.
My friend might cancel her trip if she can't.
Now, the other thing that was pointed out to me, actually by GCA, was that the state is pushing forward on the styrofoam bill at this point in time. And, should we do anything? And I mean, I haven't heard it other than the generic support thing. Is there something specific?
It's been proposed. Is it out of any committee yet? Because they must be closing down sometime in May.
Larry?
Yep.
It's out, I followed a little bit of this. I believe it's out of committee and that it's passed the Senate. And it's, I don't know if it's on the schedule to come up for a vote in the House. One thing that came up in emails that I had received was that even in districts where senators had voted yes, there were representatives that were on the fence for some reason. But I don't know if it's coming up for a vote or not, but I hope it does.
Did you track that? And if it does come up for a vote, I guess at that point, we ought to determine our ability, our interest in providing a recommendation or support for the bill.
We have to do that before it comes to a vote. We'd have to, I think the idea.
Yeah,
there's actually
we-
right now trying to get people to nudge representatives to push these things forward. So
Well,
by
it's
the
been
time
through the
it's.
Senate. Now you have to find out who's the House Representatives. That's where it's
Right.
landed. I know who
And
our local-
there's really only 2 more days left in the session, so.
Right, so I guess the question is anyone raising their hand to provide a communication on behalf of the Conservation Commission to the House Representative or for the state for the town of Groton? I think that we have 2.
Chris Connolly and Joe De La Cruz.
Yeah,
Chris Connolly a sponsor of it, or was that?
this is the last session. The cruise is
Right.
retiring for this session anyway.
Encourage, do we know the number of the bill?
I might have it. Let me check.
What was that SB 236? That was Connecticut, state of Connecticut, environmental.
No, that was, we did this. That's coming up. I actually have that on the agenda.
So this is on behalf of the Conservation Commission.
I'm looking for a volunteer to take that action.
And if you and I want to communicate on this, if you have the information, I can do it.
Sure, that sounds good. I'll find it.
And that's just a quick little missive, just saying, we encourage
It's a
you,
nudge to the right.
just please, please support
to
this
those-
bill
to those
and
two.
probably get on the floor, whatever,
Yeah.
GCA might know specifically. In fact, I'm sure I have a ton of communications from them. They might know specifically the bill and
Oh, the
who's
bill
behind
number,
who's,
Yeah, I think Chris Kuhn had sent something out, Kristen.
All right, next is the 30 by 30 discussion.
Sorry.
It's-
One more thing on the plastic. Is there any updates on the heavier plastic bags?
well,
I-
GCA was supposed to do that. I have not gotten any input from them.
Well, I recall, and I don't remember who it was exactly, but trying to increase the mill, the thickness to ban thicker ones. We just had takeout from the Chinese restaurant over on the Stonington side, Johnny's, Peking, Tokyo, whatever it's called. And they had switched to paper bags. And then the last time we went, it's this really super, super heavy, like, I think it's heavier than the bags that CVS is handing out. So it's just so frustrating. I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up, and
And
I
I think last time I was at Walmart, they had the very thick bag, which was more than the,
They've switched over to paper.
only there last week. Last week?
2 weeks ago, they were using paper.
who was, sorry?
Walmart in Groton.
Oh,
Oh, I wasn't in.
Yeah, there's a lot of gamesmanship
I
going
wasn't
on
in
with
Groton.
this.
yes, you're right, Kristen.
I think the GCA was gonna do research on
Yeah, I was surprised.
specific
I
mill
said,
thickness
Yeah, waterproof.
that would
Yeah,
be, that the machines that make these bags are not equipped to make them, so that they're just looking to find what the right number is. And then we thought it'd be hopefully an easy fix to get to the town council, but
I'm not sure it is, because they bounced up to a much thicker one than they originally suggested. That's what waiting for. data.
I think didn't the state or something say 4 mills?
It was pretty, yeah, the state one was pretty thin.
Yes. Saying anything south of that,
Like, you
Uh,
couldn't use.
you couldn't use.
So now they went to a thicker one. So that's.
Right, so
calling them reusable,
Yeah, that's right. They're
even though
trying
nobody
to.
reuses them.
I haven't seen many of those heavier ones floating around and
They
are
don't
caught up in
float, no,
trees.
they don't float in trees. So that is something, right? That's progress, I guess.
Yeah, it's still plastic. CVS
so much?
Groton is handing out.
Yeah,
to have
that I
your-
wondered too. Yeah, where are they going?
All right, well, I think I'm gonna kind of let that one ride for now, unless someone wants to do something more specific. We just did 2 other actions in regards to plastics and styrofoam. So if I could go forward to the next agenda item? Okay. 30 by 30. So last time we had 1,600 acres. Tom had the to-do to explain, I guess, in one sense was the pros and cons to a property owners and why they would be interested in doing this or not, because we had that discussion amongst ourselves.
Well, what I did is I've been investigating what areas of the town could we take a look at practically. And so, I worked with Noah to get the zoning updated, and I found a number of areas that when I started looking at individual parcels that had needed corrections, particularly when I'm looking at the other parts of town. One of the things I took a look at was that are there parts that when I started looking at the zoning maps, you notice that the town of Groton has its dedicated GR and GC spaces. The city of Groton has what they call ROS spaces, okay? And Groton Long Point has CV spaces, okay? And Noah has nothing that has anything kind of to do with dedicated open space. So I went and looked at that and said, are there actions that we could be taking? So I went to I took a look at all the PA 490 properties and did some analysis there. Oh, it's up on the screen, right? And I think I don't know if that got included in the
Blow that up a lot.
in the presentation here, but.
We had a map that has those
Yeah.
490 on.
Yes,
Yeah, the map shows it.
the map shows it.
The map does show it now.
This is
Okay.
a little easier for me to see the map than off list.
And what I did was I took a look at whether or not the individual parcels, I kind of said that you've got to have some basic space. So I kind of went 5 acres and above. Or just that right around 5 acres. I just went down that far. But to take a look at, does that PA 490 abut a current GC or GR location? Okay, so now I'm not doing spot zoning and generating new spots. I'm expanding an area. I'm cutting out some residential or industrial zoning, but expanding the currently approved GR, GC zones. And that's what made this, that's where I came up with this list. Yes.
So real quick clarification from my part. Let's say a GR property or what's the other?
There's GR is green recreation, which would be most of your parks.
Okay.
Okay.
GR.
And then GC is a green conservation, which is basically the dedicated open space.
So when you look at a map with the colorations of GC, is it a broad swath, or is it just sit on top of
It
that
sits on the
particular
way
property?
here because of this. Let's talk a little bit about what happened back in 2016 to 2018 when we redid the zoning regs. This is the first time they introduced this, and they basically took the big parcels that belong to GOSA, of Avalonia, and to the town, and to Groton Utilities, and they just threw those in and said those parcels make up the GC/GR areas. Okay, so it was pretty simple how they did it.
Okay.
And then everything around them got zoned in the same way. See, we probably missed an opportunity when they were rezoning everything to say, oh gosh, we could have, gone out and be more broad. But I think the people that at the time were much more, how do I maximize my taxes? Those opportunities for the residential or commercial zoning prevailed, and so they got the bigger chunks. And so, but they did acknowledge that because of the way the POCD was written, that they had to acknowledge that it's plan of conservation. So we'll acknowledge that we've got conserved areas, but we're not going to expand those. Okay.
Right.
So that's what I'm advocating potentially here to go and analyze this. So the other thing I took out of this was a recognition that a business is probably unlikely to be cooperative to being for rezoning. So I took all the businesses out of here too. Okay.
Like Whittles?
Like Whittles or if it's LLC, in the
right.
owner.
Yeah.
Okay. So I took those all out also as potential. So what I'm going to, and so then I said, this is going to require some planning and zoning interface. So I went to the last week's planning and zoning commission meeting and said, as the representative of the town of the Conservation Commission, I would like to have a point of contact who I can talk to on the planning and zoning commission to address a potential rezoning of potential of PA 490 lands. Okay. For discussion purposes. Okay. And the rest of the meeting was all short-term rentals, but at the very end, they came back to me and said, "Does anybody want to work with the Conservation Commission?" And Sue Sutherland raised her hand and said, "Yeah, I know all about that stuff." And so she said, "So I now have a point of contact." I was out of town. That was like last Wednesday, and I've been out of town. I just got back, just before this meeting here, so I'm back, and I will be contacting Sue to continue this philosophical discussion in regard to, is it potentially reasonable to expand the GRGC? Now, this is where Eugenia's point was, is this adequate protection? I look at it, permanently preserved. And it's questionable, but it's better than, I look at it, protection is kind of a spectrum. But we're opening it from 490, which we know that
It has no protection.
which it has really no protection other than it's an incentive to keep the land vacant, to keep your taxes down. Okay,
Until
with through a
somebody
tax,
really wants to buy it.
right? But it's not until somebody really wants to buy it. That's what we had this. We saw this past year up on Briar Hill Road. They actually came to us, giving us first. You want to buy this to keep it, or else I'm going to go sell it to some developer, okay? Because it's zoned that way. But if we have people that it gets zoned, it makes it harder for them. We provide a level of heart, that they have to go to zoning change, and the developers at first blush aren't going to look at it, okay? So I'm just trying to say that that's a potential way of looking at, and also it would send the message that we do have these areas that are privately held above and beyond, that are PA 490, that individuals in the town hold, not just land trusts. Okay, it's another area that we could be going for.
If it has, so if I'm a property owner and I have my property under 490,
Yeah.
what advantage?
It would keep it. It would give them one more level if they want to keep if they want to continue it in the future. Okay, their future would have to go through a zoning change to get it to be able to sell it to a developer.
An extra hurdle.
It's an extra hurdle.
But that's not what the
But-
owner gets on.
But the owner has to approve this.
But I would, and this is all still being very mushy, okay, is that the Conservation Commission would help be the advocate with the individual, because this would probably be individual zoning changes for each one of these.
Right.
We would be the instigator with that individual because we're not going to, I think that the zoning commission, for planning and zoning commission would be, have to listen to the owner strongly over than what the Conservation Commission is advocating. That's I would only probably be advocating for both in joint agreement.
Which gets back to the point, what's in it for the owner?
But it gives him a longer guarantee of what his intention is with that land to preserve it. Because a lot of people, you surprisingly, a lot of people buy land because they want to preserve it and put it, and so the best they can, his only option is to put it in 490. But we're gonna go advocate that you go the next step to go get it change the zoning, because probably when he bought it, that zoning wasn't available to him.
Okay, so the advantage is for people that want to preserve the land.
Right.
So I guess the question would be is if there's an interest in,
But you know, to some degree, I would almost categorization of that. Is that a permanent open space? Well, it's not permanent, but maybe we need to go back and take a look at when next design, what dedicated open space is.
So if someone's bought land for the purpose of preserving it, I mean, if they donated it to an open space organization or the town, now they're not paying any tax and they're accomplishing their goal. Preserving it, but they don't trust the town. They're afraid I'm gonna donate it to the town and then the town's gonna sell it for development. That's, I mean, but isn't that a possibility?
That's a
Like,
possibility, but unless there's an easement attached to it or something, there's other options here that I haven't explored fully.
but
Yeah.
if someone really wants to preserve it, then why should they have to pay any taxes at all on it?
Well, yeah, but if they still want to own it and use it for their own.
They're
for their
you'll
own
use, and maybe
purposes for-
they're benefiting from you taking the firewood or
Right.
whatever, selling
And then
wood or
push their
whatever.
horses to roam or whatever,
Someone would
that they
do.
couldn't get out of if they could do an easement, but they
Right.
couldn't do that if they donated it.
Yeah.
A lot of
Right.
people don't do easements. But they'll give it, at least thinking of Babylonia, that I've sat on a couple of easements. But that's long and involved, but the person still owns it.
Yeah.
That's the good thing. And it doesn't come off the tax roll, even though it's a reduced. And that's always an advantage.
Or as long as they live or something, you know.
No, it's usually,
usually-
no, it carries, gets
Goes
written,
with the deed then.
gets written into the deed and it's passed on. There's a property over in Mystic, over by, used to be the Cutler School. It's passed down,
You know exactly where that property is. Wait, by the Butler School or the Color School?
Cutler, just down the road. And Chapman property, and it's gone through, I think, 3 owners. I think it's a great idea,
It's worth pursuing.
it's worth looking at because
It's
it
worth
is
pursuing.
spot zoning. For good, for bad. But it adds, I like the idea of, it adds another layer of a person, if they want to release it for development, for instance. It's another layer they have to go through to do it. And perhaps at the end, a lot of times, when people give up land that has been in 490, are doing it close to the end of their life, and they're looking at settling their estates and figuring out who's going to get what when I go. And a lot of times, then that's when they'll say, "I want to save it."
Yeah.
But
Go for it, Tom.
We'll continue. I'll give you reports as I meet with Sue over the next month and,
you should have an interesting perspective for it too.
I appreciate the comments and I'll coordinate all this I'm just giving you an update. This is nothing's actionable at this time.
Do you know if it exists anywhere in the state? Is that as such?
Where where somebody has been proactive with zoning stuff, I almost,
Do you want to switch
this
spots?
Hamden East Line area, they say 56% of the town is set up that way. So it's preserved.
That's interesting.
And I haven't really gone, that's one of the areas I want to go take a look at how they're zoned in that area, but there was an article in the newspaper within the last week where they bought a bunch of land from the East Line Land Trust, where the guys who were buying it.
Right,
But
right,
the
right.
comments, because it was a joint thing with the town and Deep, and I think National Wildlife Service were there was like 4 people involved in this thing. But I know the town is involved. That's where they were commenting about how, but they had the town council comment in there about how they really have that attitude that we want to be preserving as much of the town is property. Whereas I'd have to say Groton is a little bit different type of town relative to where it wants to be, you know, just by the nature of what, you know, that we just don't have. We have so much industry already in the town.
Right.
We need the residential.
Plus we're outside of a larger population.
Yeah. A similar land amount.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
so, the next topic is going to be our infamous conservation development plan action list. So I took the one from last week. I got rid of all the completed ones. Kind of added some midterms in here, so you notice that it got shorter. So that's a good thing. And the yellow ones are the ones that had actions as of last time. So I wanted to quickly go through here and see if folks had some update to this.
I have a couple of questions.
Yep.
One of the things that you hint at is there lands linking open space that could be in 490 are not. And I don't know the town well enough to say, okay, here's a linkage. It's got open space. It could be some or all of the property in between. It's not it's just a residential, for instance. But they're not in 490. So there seems something to suggest in here that we're going to go out and suggest to somebody to put their property in 490. And I didn't know if there was anything out there that's got to have minimum is 25 acres. They don't have to be contiguous, but the minimum is 25. So if you have 24, might be on our radar, but it's not large enough to qualify for 490.
Well, I think that's the point. Is there any out there that might be put on that continuum of protection?
Yeah, I haven't, I can tell you that there are, what we did the last thing, but it slips my mind now because it was so long ago that we looked at it. There are some, but I will take an action to follow up with that. I know that was in these actions that we talked about in the plans. We just haven't got to that, but I think it's time to get to it.
We're making progress with it. So let me start at the top though. So the top one was 2.16, which is dealing with the coastal programs, working with the resiliency committee, and then this was the MS4 status, which is coming up. I thought it was supposed to be sometime. Does anybody have any update on MS4? Because I think that's what this was.
I did send Michelle Maitland a note to see if there were any updates, but I haven't heard back from her. And also the part of this municipal coastal plan, I don't know if this has like the workshops, yeah, for the coastal resiliency. I haven't seen any updates on that either. I think they were looking to hire, do an RFP and then figure out to move on from there.
Last I knew that there was an RFP going out and it's supposed to be coming back this month. Hey, if that was coming back in May. But again, it was a study. You know, another study of the recommendation.
I know, another study.
Another study, yeah, hard study. Now 7211B, love our nomenclature. Again, this was a little bit of the 490 committee. We just talked about that. So I think I can update that with what we just said. Then we had the NER one, which was official. And I guess the question back to Ray was, is there any expectation of a timeline for useful information for us from their program?
No. No, the
Well,
straight-
that's succinct.
Right. Spoke with somebody a few weeks ago, and the person I thought would be the primary director of it didn't want it, or no, didn't get it. Somebody was put in position of directing this thing over her. And then there was, I think, a third party. So bits and pieces are coming together.
Well, in disarray is basically.
Yes, yes.
All right, well, that's a placeholder because we weren't going to do anything until we be able to get some data from them. Let's see, 7251. Oh, this is partial team to identify relevant sites, which I spelled wrong. For investigation with priority on pollinated pathway.
Well, I can adjust pollinator pathways to some extent. So I've put together there's a group, we're meeting on May 18th under the auspices of the Conservation Commission, 5 o'clock here. And there's going to be a guest speaker. Marjorie Meekoff is going to talk about the pollinator pathway program in general. We have something on the order of 15 to 20 people who committed to come and be involved in this launching effort. We have everything from we have a college professor, school administrator, we have a middle school student, we have deputy mayor of Groton, we have the former mayor of Groton, Patrice, we have it's a whole a college kid with a big variety, some local garden club people and some friends and neighbors of mine. So the idea is launching this, and we have Maura Roby from the ECCD. She's already gotten a sizable grant to do rain gardens, and they have gotten money to install 4 rain gardens. So I'm like, yeah, we'll absolutely work together, because if you're going to put in a rain garden, you might as well make it native pollinators. And they've already, I think, selected some sites around Baker Cove, and but I think the starting site will be at the senior center, Groton Senior Center. So basically, this is like the first meeting to kind of get everybody introduced to each other, see what the directions are that people maybe in which projects are people most interested in. But it seems like we're having a launch on this finally on this project. So,
It's like 2 years at least. You've been.
well, yes, there were meetings and they were canceled because COVID, and it's just so finally.
No, it sounds like good progress.
Yes. Yes. So if anyone wants to come there and be, on support, that's fine.
Wait, and where is that?
May 18th, right here in the big room,
Okay.
the town annex,
May.
5 o'clock, May 18th. Yeah.
All right, 72.
Oh, and one more thing.
One more thing.
Just because I'm already talking. I was up at Saturday and went up to Woodbury all the way across the state to give a composting workshop. But when I was there, it was a huge Earth Day fair. And there was actually I think it was Southbury, some community had a Conservation Commission had a booth at the Earth Day fair. And it was cool because they had a nice logo in the back. They had a little, some of their spreadsheets showing the land that was preserved. They had little stations. It was a nice exhibit because, we're doing a lot here. We're working hard. We're accomplishing a tremendous amount, but I'm not sure that that's really getting out there in the general public. So I just thought, in the future, if we thought that might be something to do, I got a real good model of the types of things. They had like brochure on, they have brochure on invasive species. And they just had a lot of nice things, that were good. So I just want to throw that out there. Publicize what we do a little bit, promote. Yeah. What wasn't much. It was a tent. They had a sign printed up with a nice logo, and then just little card tables with information on them.
You got pictures?
I did. I took pictures.
Maybe like for next year, Earth Day or something,
Yeah.
we'll find somebody that's got something going on and.
Yeah.
Participate.
That Earth Day was some big affair, let me tell you.
The town has some, at Point of Plains, they have once or twice a year, their tent set up for all
Truck
sorts.
festival or,
Yeah, fall festival.
That's all, yeah.
October.
Mhm.
Columbus Day weekend.
That's an idea, yeah, to have a bit of the town's festival, fall festival.
When we think about, we've gotten the plastic ordinance through, we've gotten this whole plan of conservation development done, there's just a lot that we could like promote.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Pollinator.
Yeah, we give it to our new appointee. Well, we get fully manned here.
Do we know about it? No.
I don't know, there's a vacancy, it's advertised.
Oh, yeah, no,
I don't think they've had
The takers.
any bites on it. They're not looking for perfection, they're just looking for someone.
This is,
Town resiliency and climate, whatever.
No, I'm talking about for us.
Oh, for us.
Our opening.
Oh, our opening, yeah. Oh, the Conservation Commission.
Yes, we have an opening.
I'm gonna assign it to the whoever's the new person.
Right.
Person X.
Yeah.
Oh.
openings, I think, all across the board. Is it, did Deb say anything about replacing Bruce?
That's one of they're having trouble finding people for the sustainability position and for this position, and there's there are other openings.
Anybody want a job?
It's a tough market out there for hiring. I mean, the market is because the hiring body are having troubles finding people.
People want to work, they just want to be paid a decent
Well,
wage.
there's what, 3-4 million open jobs in the United
Some
States.
don't want to work. Some want to work if you pay better, but some just don't want to work.
So it's tough finding folks. And I was saying to Deb earlier, that this area of conservation, all of a sudden, from a business point of view, it's getting a lot of traction and a lot of folks are moving into it. But then there's a lot of competition for the folks moving into it, which is kind of why folks move into it. You know, it's kind of like it feeds on itself. If there's a demand, people will then get educated, but it's going to be a while for supply to catch up with demand. But the good news is, you know, it's there. There's a lot of this stuff going on everywhere. So conservation is a business these days. Yeah, look at it. Let me go. Oh, the 7274 was social justice. I think Anne was the focus.
Yeah, I made a lot of progress on this. There's certainly a clear difference between the city and the town on open space. It could be like 10-fold, maybe higher, 20-fold difference in amount and access to open space. I kind of ran into I got stuck, and I think, Larry, maybe if I could go meet with you offline sometime to go through show you what I've done, and maybe we can come up with a plan on how best to move forward. Would that be okay?
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, I have a lot of it done. It's just a matter of, there's a lot of, I used Noah's database, which is great. But there's a lot of things in the managed open space that I think we could, do we want to include it or not? So I think if we just go through that and make sure that we're consistent, I can show you how I did it and what was included and what wasn't, and we can make adjustments. Does that sound good? All
right. This is one of the more difficult ones because it's kind of squishy on the definition. And a lot of it has to do with access and just physical location.
Could I comment? Just, I mean, it's entirely logical that the city would have less open space by virtue of being a city compared to the town. So I mean, while there's inequity in open space, it's because one's a city and one's a town. So that seems like it's sort of intrinsic to me. I mean, I guess you want to optimize what there is in the city and make it as best you can, but how could they have equal open space or equal access?
Well, that's a good point. And also, I was reading some of the POCD where there's a line in there. Let's see if I can find it. It says something like 98% of the land is basically, what it is, and so it's very difficult to find any additional open space land. I'd have to find the right wording that they use, but yeah, so that's part of it. And people, certainly when you look at for the social justice map part of this, certainly the income level is a lot lower in the city as well. So it kind of addresses a couple of things, but and you're right, Larry, it is squishy access. So, can people get to Bluff Point and that kind of thing using public transportation? Anyway, I think if I could talk through a few things with you, and then I think I can move ahead on it. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Very good. So set up some available times and we can hook up on that.
Sure.
See, 7.3.1. The Tom Olson one. You can tell by the number of words. Let's see. Well, actually, this is a 30 by 31.
I already updated that.
And you're, yeah, very good. So that one, well, it wasn't up. Yeah, we already got the update, so I can add some stuff in there. 7.3.6. Program stewardship plans, let it kick up front because we did that. This gets into the parcels, which we're going to come up to in a separate section. So let's leave that for the stewardship section. I'm trying to pick off things that not elsewhere on the agenda. Let's see. Now, we did have something called an open space education plan that we started a while ago. But I think it kind of got morphed, is my take, got morphed into the stewardship program.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, okay. So that's kind of, so I don't, so, which is fine. So as we kind of zero in on what our actions is, so.
And actually, Kristen's idea about the booth and stuff would also fall under education.
Yep.
That's one-to-one
So
conversation.
yeah, you might actually want to add that idea in the comment section of the education thing, just as it's tracked that way.
Okay.
You could even put something together by fall if there was what's at that fall festival?
Everything
Everything?
imaginable.
Oh,
The land trust have stuff,
A lot
people,
of candidates for the Republican.
right?
Democrat,
People just selling stuff, like selling crafts, people in
Right.
crafts thing. I mean, it is literally anything in Groton.
where is it? In Conic? Where is it?
Down here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You fly a helicopter in. the whole thing, yeah.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, I mean, it has pretty much a little bit of everything.
Oh, that's-
Arrange it or something for the kids.
Yeah, and the fire departments, some of the fire departments are there, you'll have the food trucks will be there and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's,
When, did anyone know when it is?
Well, this
Normally the
weekend, right?
weekend, that's the Saturday of the Columbus Day weekend,
That's October?
Yes.
October, or maybe the weekend before.
Mm.
They haven't run in the last couple of years because of the COVID.
Got the COVID, yeah.
Well, somebody's having a new grandchild, the first one ever in this October, so I might have to opt out of it.
Congratulations.
I was gonna volunteer to put it together, but I think I'll be busy.
well, you could do a lot of, I mean, it depends how much you have busy you are ahead of time, but
Right, I can do it, yeah.
All right, that kind of, I mean, the rest of these, we're gonna get to on a separate topic. So I'll do some, okay, now the open space stewardship workbooks and action log. So I haven't updated the action log.
this is an easy one because I haven't done anything with the workbooks. Although I can say I haven't heard anything from GOSA or, are you talking about stewardship manual? Or are you talking about what stuff that Tom does?
No, this is
What are we talking about here?
The action log is the extract from Tom's
Right,
thing, that over there.
okay.
And then based upon that, how we're gonna then manage it. So
Okay, so that does fall under this category then. Okay. So I still haven't heard anything from, I think Avalon and Ghost have not passed their new stewardship manuals yet, but what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take the current one that Avalon has out there online. And I'm gonna just start a draft one of ours that when I get their updated stuff, I can just make adjustments based on what it's in there. So I will start working on that.
did they give you any idea when?
No, they don't know. They're not gonna know.
They're like us.
It's pretty fluid, but I can at least start a draft and we can start talking about what topics we want in there and what issues need to be covered, and we can start talking about it. I just didn't get to that yet because I'm dealing with end of the semester stuff with school.
Hey, you doing summer school?
No,
Oh, let's get the summer off. Oh, good, we can give her stuff to do. Yes.
I am vacationing quite a bit this summer.
Oh. Hey,
Take this with you.
it Zoom works
Yeah.
anywhere. All right. 2022 budget status. So she had the Tom and Larry show. So Tom went to the town council and
I went to the public hearing held by the town council.
to extol the virtues of it, and they promptly voted to not to.
Well,
Make it a zero.
they got the message because when they posted the number for the town manager number, and then they upped it to the 40,000 or to 50,000. They went above and beyond what I requested. And then that got shot down. And then they reduced it another 10,000, it got shot down, got reduced again, got shot down. And then the original number got shot down. And so then they voted on zero, and that got shot down. And then so by default, it's zero. Because nothing got approved.
Nothing approved. So then I went to the RTM.
It was all 4-4 votes.
Yeah, the 4-4 vote. So I then took that to the RTM and talked about, basically repeated it and worked. Actually, I was sitting in the back of GCA, so we kind of worked together, and they also, did the same thing to advocate for getting it. And now I haven't heard anything out of the RTA process. So has anybody heard anything? I don't know if it was up yet. Yeah, I don't think, I didn't think it was, the timeline was there yet. But we did our advocation, is that the
Advocated. Oh, man, I thought we should be demanding.
I advocated, you were clowning. The tech is a term, you're supposed to be saying. Once they've taken an action, you want it to change, that's called a reclama.
Reclama.
Yes.
I thought I was giving them a challenge, but like, how dare you do all you got, think about it.
Well, once the RTM, let's say they put it back.
That's it. The RTM with a 2/3 vote can override the town council. Right. It needs 2/3.
Is there particular reasons that the council?
They felt the comments from the town council discussion that went on, and they did discuss it a lot, was that we're off buying Wolfbrook, so we don't need to do anything this year.
Well, but that was private money. I put in money.
No, there's
There's
the Ghost is putting money in for Wolfbrook, the state's putting money for Wolfbrook, and the town's putting in money for the Wolfbrook. Above and beyond what was in the Open Space Act. Now the $74,000 or $35,000 of open space acquisition is in that was zeroed out and put into that fund. But now the town will be using some of their leftover funds to go whatever they negotiate with. Now that's all still being in executive session, so I don't know where all that is. But they did brief that. So I think that was the biggest driver, is that, we're already putting money in, so we shouldn't put any more in.
This is an easy segue for them then to use the NIPS money. well, you didn't put any taxpayer money, and we the taxpayers want our money in there, but we have the NIPS money, so put that there instead.
I don't want to give them that out. To me, I still think they're two independent things.
Right, yeah,
It should be, yeah.
But the town should be making a
Yes.
commitment, and this is a long-range commitment. It's not because I did something. You're right, it may take you 10 years of this to get to the point where we have enough funds to buy something.
Right.
It's not, it's not a today thing.
I think, isn't it sort of mandated? that-
it's in the POCD.
It's not, it's not a.
So there's, Wolfbrook is still not settled as far as the funding.
Nothing is funding. The way I understand it is that the purchase and sale agreement that expired. Okay, it was going good to the end of the year. So now they're having to work with and do negotiations. They're in negotiation between the planning department.
I think they're making progress,
I don't
but
know.
it's under wraps.
So I don't know where
Not
it's
visible to the public, so, you
because
can't
it's an
comment.
ongoing negotiation.
Yes.
It's outside the scope of,
But they are working. I mean, I'll at least share with
Is
you.
it basically that, let's say, 3 different pools of money, when they put it together, wasn't quite enough? And so-
no, it's because when you explain the contract, they had enough money originally. Now, what's happened with the contractor, with the seller, that's where, I don't know where it is.
Yeah, they asked for more money.
Which is his perfectly good right,
So they're.
Right,
they're
right.
working.
Well, I thought they'd already,
Contract and
I
ask for
thought
more
they,
money.
because the contract had expired, because time is money, okay? Time is, you didn't do what you said you were going to do, get to closing by the end of the 21.
Yep.
But there's a reopener clause there essentially.
They're working. Okay.
I think we missed, in that last section, wasn't that we're in the handout, the stewardship plan for Lambtown Road open spaces? Is that where we're supposed to talk about that?
We did that last time.
no, it's in
this,
the packet.
it's in the packet.
It's in the packet, but this is the final version.
Yeah, he said, we already approved it
That's what I
with the
thought.
changes, and it's just in there.
Okay, but that,
Matter of record.
but for the record, under the last section, that the fact that we were presented with the final
Oh,
version
yeah,
of
this is the
Lambtown Road.
final version
Okay.
of it. Thank you for.
But that
actually
goes
reminding
under,
me.
that goes under
I now
4.6,
have to
right?
I have to publish the Lambtown. Oh, wait a minute. No, I can't, because that one isn't fully owned. You had a piece in there that wasn't protected. Do we have a- I remember now.
No, this one's the Lambtown Road. This is the 2 parcels that are abutting by GOSA. By GOSA properties, okay? This is, we had the issue about the people wanted to know about the conservation
right.
easements.
Yep.
And I did do that research before, and there, when just as background, because this is just kind of a follow-up question, because at the last one we approved it, people had a question. They had no problem with what the words were in here, but the question is, why is there town of Groton conservation easement medallions on various trees
Right, we had
on
that
the
discussion,
property?
right?
And the reason is that there was actually an easement that the town held on that property before, for the prior owner. Okay, before it was subdivided. Because there used to be some cranberry bogs and stuff in the area. And the easement was called out on the plan, the subdivision plan. Okay. And so and that's and the medallions were actually in the planning. Deb Jones here pulled out the file. This is the medallions we want to meet up, or the developer proposed to post. It was supposed to be on every tree every 75 feet. And I updated that in the final version here, those words. We made it
I
consistent
remember now.
with the, because I was directed to put that in
Yep.
before final publishing. And so that's what I did, is I put those words in here in the final plan. That's why it's included here, because this is updated from last time.
I'll get that
So there's, the town no longer has the easement, but.
Well, the easement becomes kind of mute because the town owns the property now.
Right, that's what I meant,
Yeah.
yes.
So in theory, we could take those medallions down in the areas that are on town owned. Now, there are medallions that are on the boundary with the GOSA property. That's if you go back in your little route, there's some on these other areas, there's some other medallions that are on the, and that's technically the town does still hold an easement on that property. It's held by GOSA now, but is the owner. It's still kind of a mute point.
All right,
Well, they're the new owner, but the easement that the town had continues on.
Yeah.
Now, so on the GOSA portion, that must be a pretty small part of GOSA's property that the town has an easement on?
Yeah, it's kind of like an access area.
anyway. All right, chunking through the end of this, guys. So Uconn Project 2022. Interesting, as you may recall, this was one on greenhouse gases and how to provide a model measurement, et cetera, et cetera. But meanwhile, just this last week, the Connecticut Clean Air Act was approved. And its focus was on transportation vehicles that the state owns and that schools own. And I'm extrapolating that to the town, but didn't quite, didn't direct the towns. Other than school systems, that was an interesting split. Regardless, it kind of fits into the model. Let me do this. So the students have been working on it. They did have a slow start. They did, and kind of wasn't real thrilled with them. Go there. Now I'm gonna bear with me. I'm in. Okay, so then they made some progress in midterms. What kind of recognize the phenomenon? So they delayed and delayed. They after we beat them up, they did make some progress. And the final model is due this coming Thursday. And I think the end of the semester is that week. So this is kind of like their final paper. So this is not quite there yet, but just to kind of show you I'm gonna go through this real quick, and what I'll do is next week, as this comes out, I'll kind of forward a link, you can look at it. But one of the things, we asked is, the 30 by 30 thing. So there was a 20, before that act, because now there's a 2050 goal. When they started this, it was a 2030 goal, right? They did more for 2030, and then they added goals for 2050. So this was the state of Connecticut. We also then later on said we need something for the town of Groton, and that's coming up. So we've got to change where the tabs are. That's no big deal. But then there was, how to calculate and estimate from a residential point of view. And working with John Reiner is basically the request was, look, there's residential, and we divided it into single and multifamily. On the commercial side, basically says for the new stuff coming in, 90% are restaurants. So we kind of focused on this, is just give us a model that's based on restaurants, right? Well, restaurants are office spaces. Those are the two here. So, so it provides information that by plugging in certain parameters, you can kind of get a view on what you're putting into the environment, right, in terms of greenhouse gas. And the residential side, in terms of vehicles, right? The vehicle size, whether it's diesel or gas, electric or better gas, I guess liquefied gas, but propane or whatever it is, right, for a vehicle. Commercial one I already mentioned, that was there. We also provided an option on how to calculate the benefits of solar systems against your existing property, your parcel, to look at that. Then asked them to take a whack. This one I'm not sure what I expect to get on this, on the social costs of greenhouse gases, right, to the town of Groton. So we trying to get specific, because as we go back to the town council, other folks, we want to talk about same thing we do with plastics. It's not just the 1 cent bag cost. Out of your pocket is really $4, whatever I came up with. Right? Same thing here. It's not just the immediate cost. It's what's the total cost as a result of pumping this stuff into the environment. Then there was a comparison if you did that against the other one between solar and non-solar. Then we had a calculation of carbon footprint. And there's a lot of pretty colors and other stuff, but there's results and links. Like I said, it's not done yet. And then we got the Groton statistics, right? Because the point was we were trying to get to the point that says how's Groton going towards its aims? And as we go forward and say, gee, Groton should electrify all their vehicles. What are the costs? What are the benefits? What are so that's really, and then ideally, this is kind of my pie in the sky dream, is that when we get to a building plan permitting process, that they have to provide the input, in terms of what their impact is. And perhaps the town council in their wisdom might say, hey, if you're below this number, well, you get a better tax rate. And if you're above the number, you get a worse tax rate. You need to build in incentives and penalties in these things for things to happen. So this is like the first step to get to that goal, which I don't see happening in the near term, but that would be kind of a path to get them here.
And this might come down from the state as well, like those kind of incentives and carrots and
Right.
sticks and
Right.
requirements might just.
So I did ask that says that, can the Uconn Department of Transportation, which does have existing targets for this, use the model. And so he's kind of the professor's looking into that to see whether that would be useful for them now, which would be interesting as a test case and a verification as we go. Anyway, so this is kind of, we did the open space calculations. It had carbon benefits of trees versus no trees, right? I mean, that was this kind of takes it to another level that says, okay, open space is nice, but then we have all these other contributors or benefits, right? And so let's look at that. I don't know if we'll see. So on Thursday, I kind of get a peek at the final version. There's also a user manual, which right now looks kind of thin, that I asked them to put together with this as well. So we'll see what happens. It might be that, that this is step one and we continue it to the next semester or go to this is the seniors and undergraduate. Do we want to ratchet up and go a master's program with, this kind of model and work effort? So to be determined, to be evaluated. So I don't know. Yes.
Sounds like a wonderful endeavor. When you're determining, let's say, the town's public works, when you're doing the formula, do you give them credit for any electric vehicles they already have? Or is it basically starting off to say, we're going to assume that all the vehicles are gas, let's say?
No, it's going to be, there'll be an inventory. In other words, the way I envision is there's an inventory of what they got
The actual.
with each of the different categories. That provides a baseline. And then like on the first chart, show a chart that says how we're going to meet our goal of 2030 or whatever.
Right.
The
So
goal
you have
is.
the vehicle type, the mileage, the
Right.
number of miles driven.
Correct.
and the carbon output per,
per vehicle, right, or at least per class of vehicle, let me put it that way. Right, relying on the Department of Transportation, or whatever it is, to then do the details if they want to get down, drill it down to be more specific. I mean, so one could, if you didn't want to try and bite off too much, this was by vehicle class. But one could certainly see expanding this with another tab that says, here's all the detailed vehicles, sum those up, plug them into another, the tab that has it as a class. And you get the, more accurate result, but the model still works because it's just an addition. Anyway, so that's my fun with students. I'm channeling my Michelle for this semester. Okay,
Is this gonna be something we can take a look at?
yeah, I said Thursday,
Okay,
when I get the thing is that if I don't throw up on it, I will send it out to you guys.
Well, Larry,
Yeah.
I don't think you're supposed to send an email that includes all of us. So you have to have the staff send it.
Yeah, but I can't send it to several subcommittees.
Just,
Information exchange is, especially since this is
I'm
you-
just saying it's something we're told to be careful about. We're not supposed to have an email that has all of our email addresses anywhere.
this is an information
I
only.
can wait till the next meeting. Somehow, I'll be able to wait.
I'm sure you'll be. Oh,
It's
man.
good, I needed that, I planted some stuff, I was waiting for the rain.
Oh, the rains have come. All right, so I stopped sharing. Let me go back to the agenda.
I do have one on the last item.
Yep.
2 items on the budget, just to go backwards 1 second here, is that the GOCD recommendation 2-5 is fund open space acquisition annually in the capital improvement program. That's why we're doing this and why we wanted to see a consistent response. The meeting for the RTM, I looked that up. It's going to be our capital improvement item is 8B. And it's at Wednesday, the 5/11 at 7 p.m. when it'll be on that agenda.
But they discuss it, we don't get to say.
We don't get to say anything. They're just going to vote on it. We'll
So,
have the
but
same
at your
discussion.
checkpoint, RTM. Oh, it says the 8th,
Wednesday, the 11th
11th.
at 7 p.m. Right now, they have to go from 0 back up. The highest they can go is the 25,000 for the town manager.
So the RTM can do whatever they want.
No, they can only go, they can't go above the town
I
manager.
thought the
number.
original one you said was up to
That's,
40,
I,
50 or.
the town council could go above the town managers. But once the town council is coming in at 0, they can only override them back up to the town manager.
Manager's
numbers.
original input.
The original input is the highest they can up it.
Okey dokey. 4-9, status of unprotected parcels. So there was the original March 8th memo to John Bird. It says, hey, this is what we want. Then I sent another email.
April, update, right?
April 5th. That basically was, what the hell's going on? No, very nicely worded though. And asked him to, I was gonna ask Deb, but she's not here. That they convene the evaluation committee for their process to evaluate our input and proposal on those properties. I have not heard anything back, and it's now almost May 5th. So I guess I have to.
Well, the only other, because this is a planning department, I did find the list of how many job openings are still being advertised, let alone in the hiring process to backfill. There's a planner to land use full-time, planner to neighborhood and community planning full-time, and then the sustainability and resilience manager full-time. So we got 3 jobs open in the planning department. Well, that's a little hairy.
Yeah, but None of those are actually on this committee. Let's see.
Well, just from the,
Yeah, I know. I know. Not high on their list of things to do.
no, it's not. They need to get staffing up before they can get involved. This, I have to admit, this is a low priority item.
Yeah, no.
It's been this way for years and it's,
Yep, and yeah, the world ain't gonna change because of this. So, but just
quadrant 4 activity.
to let you know, I did nudge him. So what I'll do is I'll nudge him. It's already been 30 days, so I'll nudge him at 60 days. How's
Yeah,
that?
like maybe every other month.
Okay. MS4 audit, we talked about that. Solid waste update. Ray was gonna investigate the public works department.
I'm in a phone tag position, so I have nothing to report.
I need to go back. You said we already did the audit. What did, I don't know. Didn't make the
So,
connection when we
I thought
talked
that
about
was,
it.
Ann said that she contacted
And did not get a.
and no response.
no
Okay.
response. Oh.
Michelle.
Got it.
Maitland.
Okay.
I never thought of public on solid waste. What the hell was it?
Right.
No. I know that. No, something different than that.
I know that there was a thing in today's newspaper about of solid waste in Gales Ferry. There's going to be a public hearing by a guy that wants to open a new facility in Gales Ferry. I don't know much. You have to look at, it was a public notice in the middle of the day today
Notice.
for a public hearing or public information. It's not a hearing, it's a public informational session.
Has anyone heard about the composting?
Yeah, I haven't heard a peep out of David Alder. She was looking to
Yeah, I thought
get a
this,
site, and once he had a site nailed down, he was gonna look to us for support, so maybe he doesn't have anything yet.
want to ping them?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, just say, hey, anything going on here that we can help with? But it wouldn't be in our town, so.
Well,
But he would be coming to our town for support.
Yes, yeah, to get.
because it would be
solid waste.
regional, it would be a regional.
No, yes, it's a regional
Something
composting that we
behind
would
it.
contribute from schools and commercial, and it's first.
This other one, I got the information is public information meeting announcement, Gales Ferry intermodal Cashman dredging and marine contracting, Route 12, Gales Ferry. Open to the general public, informational meeting regarding the permitting application for construction operation of solid waste facility to be held following internet address on May 11th at 6:30. You have to contact them to get more information. I don't know what they're doing. Moreno Engineering Associates. Running the thing.
All right,
Whatever that is.
4-12, complete street policy. Mr.
I got an email from Andre Baumgartner, the town councilor, in regard to that he's been appointed to look further into the complete street policy that they're trying, it's been proposed it's been briefed to the town council, committee of the whole, and I think a couple other places. So they've now established, he's got a subcommittee that he's trying to put together to get representatives. I said, yeah, I'm gonna be available.
I'm on it as well,
Yeah, you are too, so, okay.
but he hasn't, I
haven't heard anything more
from him.
since the
I think
initial.
he's campaigning to replace Joe De La Cruz.
Right.
And there's been a lot going on, but because my thinking was, that's about establishing, walkways, pathways, bikeways,
Right.
perfect with pollinator pathways, so if you're building a new trail or a new bike trail, plant natives along the edge. So to me, it's like, oh, trail, pathway, we're in.
Well, I got it more for when it says complete streets, it's more for the presentations I've listened to, it's been more, how do I put a bikeway as well as,
With a street.
and putting, and how much tree coverage is in it, that type of stuff. So which is it, not to say pollinators can't be part of that.
No, but I'm saying that's gonna be like, we're gonna sneak alongside that and just like make sure that if you're planting stuff, you're planting native
That's
stuff.
the right stuff.
Exactly. Not just planting pretty.
But I haven't
exotics
heard
or
any more
something.
either. I sent him a thing back. And I have no.
I'm sure he'll be getting back to us. It's only been 2 weeks since we
Yeah,
got that.
no, yeah, that's fine. 4-13 Connecticut Land Conservation Council Community Conversation. That's a mouthful. So I was at the first event.
Did you say that again? What was this? What?
It's on the.
The LCC.
The LCC.
I mean, there are so freaking many acronyms. I mean, GCA, TRVC, TRPP, ECCD. It's exhausting. I can't figure out who anybody's talking about because there's so many acronyms.
I wrote it out.
But I don't have it in front of me. So.
Connecticut Land Conservation Council Community Conservation.
Conversation. So it was a Zoom call.
Oh, yeah, I was on that.
Yeah, no, I didn't go on that. You
Yeah.
said you were gonna be on this upcoming one.
I missed one. I was on a different one with you. There was a lot of talking about making how you felt about your perceptions and
Yes,
stuff.
about conservation and.
I don't know. So,
And I just got
This,
confused.
they've had 3 of them. I've been on 2 of them. You were on the first
Wasn't
one.
that
I was the
different?
2 and us were on the second one. I was on the third one and the last one's gonna be on the 11th.
Everything's on one.
I
Wait,
know.
is this all the same? Is this the new London thing?
yeah,
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 the
yeah,
So
conversation.
there's been 3.
yes.
You and I were on one.
Yep.
You and I were on one.
Yeah.
And then I was on the third one by myself.
I meant to be there. I just forgot.
No,
about it.
Anyway. So I did anything come out of the third one?
nothing more than was out of the first one.
Okay,
I
all right.
didn't miss anything.
All right.
Although I think it's about building connections. And I think it's a very diverse group of people, which is really great in this, community where we live. There's not a lot of diversity. So I think it's nice to connect with people who are
Other
interested
communities, yeah.
in, around the area so that when you want to
I
reach
think
out.
some of probably the most interesting thing there was a comment made after, towards the end of the last session that you guys missed, was in the town of New London, if you want to have more than 5 people meet in a park, you have to get a permit. Okay,
Even if they're part of the same family?
yes. It doesn't matter. It's more than 5
If you have a
individuals.
family with 6 kids, 5 kids.
That's her point. That's her point,
crazy.
that there's a lot of rules that are making it difficult just to go out to enjoy the park that's a public park. Okay? That things that I was never aware of, not being a New London resident. I don't know that Groton has any kind of restrictions on.
I don't know either.
I'm not aware
I've
of
gone out
anything.
with more than 5 people on an outing.
And I know I've gone to the open spaces, my entire neighborhood has come, all 50 houses has come and stuff without any permitting.
No, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So,
That was
Oh,
I
that
find
was a one eye opener that came, you mentioned it, it kind of flashed back at me, is that we talk about the social type of justice things, that these people have small houses in the first place, they don't have a lot of money. What can I do? I can take my kid to the park, okay? But then they get to the park and I can't even have a cookout, because I can't do a cookout in my backyard because I don't have a backyard, because I live in an apartment.
That might have been some deliberate stuff, evil deeds by the town of New London back in the day.
Right, but
Oh,
those are still in place today and they're still being enforced, because she says, I go down to get my permit and I get, why are you here again type of attitude. Okay,
Wow.
okay, that's the kind of thing, so other people are having issues getting access to open space that maybe we don't see here. And so that's one of the things that I just give you that as an example that kind of stood out at me. There's other towns that is like up in Salem and East Lyme and stuff, where they have 50% of the town is open space and stuff. They're on the kind of the other spectrum as far as, because there's no industry, there's very, how do I maintain all this type of stuff? And, and so there's more land than they have. So they have other people coming in from out of town using their land and stuff, and how, and they're having to pay for it and that kind of stuff. That's another downside.
Yeah. So
Those are
we
kind
have
of
social
discussions that
justice,
are
is
at
access.
this, those are the kind of things that are being talked about.
Okay, and the last item on the formal agenda was the backlist, another outfit too for you.
What? There's another,
BAC,
Backward.
backward.
Yeah, I think, I think
it's
someone.
not on the formal agenda. It is not on the formal agenda.
It's on Larry's agenda.
The report is not on, it didn't show up here printed.
I never put an agenda on my attention.
How did that, because you were at the meeting,
I attended
Yeah.
the last.
that's why
meeting.
it was on here, 4-6 meeting. You didn't make it, huh? My mistake, I thought I put it in, it evidently didn't make the cut.
Okay, so what is it? Can you put it maybe up on the screen or
This is
something?
the
So,
Baker,
Baker's Cove,
Baker's
Um,
Cove.
yeah,
And there's talk of rain gardens along them. You point on the.
that's
people.
about all of that came out was the rain garden type of stuff. And that, I gave them an update as far as on with Michelle. My contribution was the Michelle meeting with GOSA and the stewardship, because we own,
Right.
those parcels right there are part at the headwaters right there. And also I gave them an update on the greenway, because the greenway goes right through that area also. But that's the portion, the one portion of the Groton Crosstown Greenway that's not complete yet. Is in that Baker Cove thing. As I said, that it was gonna, at that time, it had not been approved, but that the application was gonna be reviewed on the 12th. It was indicated to be very positive to date, that I told them about it. Those were the two contributions I made at that meeting. And I didn't really bring anything out of the way. They're kind of hurting right now. They've got some money and they're working to get some stuff, but they need some volunteers to continue with the stewardship plans where we can really help them out. And getting some advocacy if we can make that our #1 priority
Right.
area for this, from the stewardship planning. I think we already talked
we
about
already
that.
talked about doing that, yeah.
we
Yeah.
did that on the front.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, so that's all. I just gave an update on that.
Cool.
All right. Are there any additional topics that a member of the commission would like to bring forth? Forthwith. If not, I will seek a motion to adjourn.
We can, so you don't have a report of chair? You already told us everything?
Oh, I think I did everything. I kind of fit it all in,
Nothing additional.
and staff isn't here, so.
Okay. I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey, approved unanimously.
Who am I gonna give it? You know what? These two gave a lot of motions in seconds, so I'm gonna give it to you, Ann.
Yay, thank you.
Did you stop the recording?
Maybe, let's see.
Yep, go up to.
Pause, stop